Welcome to Jeff Kenyatta Live on the road. We're in New York City this week. As many of you know, Kenya assumes the presidency of the United Nations Security Council, the top decision-making body in the world. President Uhuru Kenyatta is the chairman for the entire month of October in this decision-making body. That's a huge deal. If you were sitting in that room when you saw the 15-member body, it's no small deal. So we're going to be talking global politics. We're going to be talking African politics and Kenya's role as in the presidency. The President has granted us an exclusive interview here in New York. Mr. President, good to see you. Welcome to Jeff Kenyatta Live.
Thank you, Jeff. Nice to be with you.
I saw you today at the United Nations Security Council. So when you chaired your first meeting, what was it like? What does Kenya hope to get from that?
Well, I think the beginning is our hope that we will be able to take advantage of this month of our presidency to continue to pursue the African agenda, to continue to pursue the African diaspora agenda, which includes CARICOM and the rest, our sixth region, as I said, and all in the pursuit of how we can work together to strengthen the multilateral system, to make it meaningful, impactful, and with the capacity to have clear deliverables to people from the African continent, to countries on the African continent, to countries in the African diaspora, but more so to also help us resolve numerous issues that are currently afflicting our continent in one way or another in different parts. Issues ranging from climate change, issues ranging to conflict between nations, issues to do with our COVID recovery, but even before we get to that, access to vaccines. These are all critical issues that Kenya wishes to engage on, not only on her own behalf, but like I said, on behalf of all countries in the African continent.
Mr. President, you always often refer to Kenya as a safe pair of hands. What do you mean by that?
I mean that Kenya is always a country through her history that has always recognized the need for peaceful resolution to conflict, always recognized the need to be at peace with her neighbors, always recognized and has been a safe haven for many millions across our region who have fled persecution in their own countries. And when we say we are a safe pair of hands, as we strongly believe that we can play a pivotal role in terms of peace and security in our region. Kenya is a leader on the climate agenda, being one of the few countries globally that can actually boast that in excess of 70% of our energy requirements and needs are green. Very few countries, leave alone in Africa, globally, can actually hold such credentials up high. So we are positioned to be great advocates for some of these causes that affect not just our country, but the globe.
Being in that room, chairing and banging that gavel and making those decisions, is 1 month enough, do you think?
Well, the fact of the matter is it's 1 month at the presidency, but we have a 2-year stint as members of the Security Council. So this month we really just have the added benefit of directing the agenda and the program for this particular month. But in terms of the overall issues that we wish to be brought to the fore, we're going to, and we look at our term in its totality. This month is just a month where we can clearly focus on certain issues that Kenya would like to aggressively push for and advocate for.
You're heading over to the White House. You're going to meet, you're going to do bilaterals with President Biden. What do you hope to get for that?
Well, first and foremost, just a further re-establishment of the strong ties between our two countries, a situation that I have pursued during my presidency, first with President Obama, then with President Trump, now with President Biden. and a desire and a need to strengthen our economic cooperation, our security cooperation, the fact that we are faced in some instances with common threats that we need to work together towards, and also to see how we can strengthen our trade and our investment linkages for the mutual benefit of our two nations. So these are just some of the issues that I would hope to continue to pursue with President Biden, as we have done with previous administrations in the past.
Yeah. So do you sometimes see Kenya as like an oasis surrounded by so much conflict? You were mentioning the conflict in the region too.
Well, I do, but I also believe that our peace and our stability is also based on our neighbors' peace and stability. Kenya cannot be without her neighbors, and that is why we are consistently always looking and striving to have good relations with all our neighbors, which indeed we do. And where we try and push our particular style of approach, which is one of dialogue versus one of confrontation. And we have seen this working. We have been participants and worked together with other nations of our region in pursuit of peace and stability across. So I would not want to say that we are on our own an island of peace and stability, because our desire and our clear recognition is we can only be such if our region is also a region of peace, stability, and tranquility.
Yeah. Speaking of relationships, you're reaching out beyond Africa. You've just come back from the Caribbean and Barbados in the trip and handing over the leadership of UNCTAD. What was that like? What was the experience like? And what do you hope to gain from that?
We are able to achieve more when we work together. As I said in one of my sessions today, people of African descent are possibly in excess of 2 billion people across the globe, but very loosely connected. Were we to be able to bring and to bridge that gap and to be able to talk to one another much more regularly in a much more coherent manner, we would be able to drive our individual agendas that much better if our voice was a collective, sound, coherent, unified position. And some of the things that we have been working on is to say that, look, we need to be able to go to the global stage, not as individual countries, but as one strong, powerful voice for peoples of African descent. And this is something that I believe is also gaining currency, not only in Kenya, but also throughout Africa and throughout the African diaspora. Prior to my visit to Barbados this time, I chaired the first AU CARICOM summit. And what were we discussing there? All the issues that I previously mentioned to you, be it global climate change, be it issues of debt relief, where countries have been fighting this thing individually. But when we come together, our voice becomes, as I said, stronger. We have a much more powerful voice across the multilateral system. When you consider Africa, the number of countries on the African continent, the number of countries that make up the CARICOM region, this is a strong, powerful voice. If it was stitched together into one strong match. You know, as the Kikuyus have that saying, if you really stitch the base of a kiondo and make it strong, it can carry rocks, right? And this is what we are trying to build, make ours strong, that it can be able to push our agenda, our voice, to much greater heights. Yeah. And these are some of the things that we hope to do. For the first time, you know, we managed, when we were faced with this COVID situation, to bring, for example, the Caribbean, which are small countries with small populations. But when we added them on to our platform of purchasing vaccines, riding on the strength of the African numbers, they were able to access some of those vaccines at much lower prices. The problem, of course, was that despite all this preparedness, we still were not able to get access to the vaccines. And now that is a battle, and that is a recognition that, you see, we were able to bring ourselves together to negotiate good prices, but we were still faced with other challenges that included access to vaccines. Now, what does this tell us? The same way we got together in order for us to take advantage of bulk buying, we now also need together and say that if we are out there and we're saying we want to manufacture for 2 billion people, we should start now also manufacturing vaccines for our own people. So again, we're not dependent on others to supply us. But if Kenya alone were to go and say, I'm manufacturing vaccines for 40 million, Barbados was going to say, I'm manufacturing vaccines for 400,000, another country for 2 million, it doesn't make economic sense. But if we're out there saying, wait a minute, this is our market size and we want to force production in our region to supply these almost 2 billion people, that is a powerful voice. That is an interesting voice, even for people who are looking to invest when you're talking about a market that size.
Is that why you often hear the phrase, vaccine apartheid?
Well, it has been vaccine apartheid. How can you call it anything other when you have countries, developed countries, owners of the vaccine, owners of the factories, hoarding, injecting their people not only with just the 2 injections, but also moving to inject a third booster injection. And yet most of our countries are well below 5% who have received even 1 single dose. So you can call it what you want, but basically that is denying billions of people access. And I think when you go by exclusion, you can call it exclusion, you can call it apartheid, but it all means ultimately the same thing, denying access.
Mr. President, your vision, I mean, you're coming up to the end of your presidency in about a year's time. Your vision, not just for Kenya, but the continent. What do you see? What do you
I just continue to see this huge potential that we have as a continent if only we pulled and worked together. If only, and I repeat because I will never tire of doing so, recognize the strength that we have in our numbers. If only our voice was one. Recognizing the opportunities that we have. If, for example, we were manufacturing for the population the size of which I've given you. And recognizing that our differences are actually fewer than the similarities and opportunities that we have were we together. The potential for our continent, for our respective countries is tremendous. If only we could just harness that power of unity.
So I know you're a busy man, you have many meetings here in New York, and we appreciate your time. When we get back to Kenya, we can talk.
I'll give you another one.
We'll talk local politics, we'll
Absolutely.
talk regional politics.
Absolutely.
The works.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time.
Really appreciate it, Jeff, and thank you for being with us.
Good to see you in New York, sir. Thank you, sir. And thanks so much for joining us. President Uhuru Kenyatta, he's assumed the temporary chairmanship of the United Nations Security Council here in New York. So Kenya is on the front burner the entire month of October, and of course still on the Security Council for the next 2 years. Thanks so much for joining us. This has been a special edition, exclusive Jeff JKLive here in New York City. Thanks again, Mr. President. Appreciate it. All right, all the best.